The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Head to cut.com, that's KUTC.com, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Nordic Fantasy. Play their fantasy pick'em for a chance to win 100 times your money in NBA, NHL, college basketball, and more. Sign up today using promo code SGPN to get a 100% deposit match. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports fan research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the app or visit HOBets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently late Monday night, March 25th, roughly 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again, going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to actually get into the round of 16 in Miami. So we are going to preview most of the matches and not all of them. To be honest, we thought about doing all of the matches, but there are no lines for a couple. So as a result, we are going to skip them. I factored that into the lock and dog picks. So everything we're going to be talking about on the show does have betting lines. So keep that in mind. And we'll be covering all of the quarterfinal matches in the next episode as a preview there. A reminder, though, before we actually get into the recap of the last episode, to like and subscribe on YouTube. Also a reminder to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or Apple. I believe we are a couple away from 100 subscribers on YouTube. I think we're at 96 right now. So help us get over 100 and then eventually, hopefully, 1,000 and onward. But either way, just a reminder of how to support the show. And another way to support the show is to go on the SGPN merch store for the Tennis Gambling Podcast, because we have merch for the store. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, etc. Bunch of Tennis Gambling Podcast gear. So don't forget to check that out as well if you want to support the show. And also a reminder that this show is presented by the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, obviously. And we have a bunch of shows on the network besides tennis. And if you're listening to the show, a reminder that all of the SGPN podcasts are completely free. 20-plus gambling podcasts, all free. And with college basketball in full swing with March Madness, this week's featured shows are the flagship show, the SGP Sports Gambling Podcast Show, hosted by Ryan Real Money Kramer and Sean Stacking the Money Green, where the guys have picked every tournament game ATS since 2012, and also the College Basketball Experience, where Kobe picked Dundee. You have Ryan, Moneyline Mac, and producer Noah Bienick continue their unmatched coverage of college basketball betting. And a reminder to subscribe to the Sports Gambling Podcast and the College Basketball Experience, wherever you get your podcasts, if you are definitely focused heavily on your brackets and on college basketball, and you're going to be for the next week and change. But anyway, time to get into the actual recap of the last episode. For the lock and dog picks, overall a decent episode. In fact, basically nothing happened. If you missed the show, congrats, you broke even. So that's exactly what happened with us. We ended up losing with Safulin on the lock at -2.5 games and -120, as he did end up losing to Musetti. Pretty convincingly, Musetti looked great, and he ended up beating Shelton in the round after. So Musetti's been playing good form, did pick up a loss there, but did win the dog. We had a parlay. We took two big favorites to win in straight sets. Had Shelton to win in straight sets, parlayed with Dimonauer to win in straight sets at even money. Never in doubt, Shelton destroyed Landalucci and ended up seeing Dimonauer destroy Kwon. So sweat-free there. And as a result, we broke even, because even money will get you exactly what the hell you lost on the lock. Either way, though, point is look for a sweep here in this episode. But a reminder, for the sake of the actual schedule for this podcast, the last episode, because of the bad weather in Miami, we did cover a specific day. So because of that, we ended up covering the matches for one day. We didn't actually get into the entire round of 32 preview. We are officially back on track. They made up the matches on Monday. So because of that, we are now officially into the round of 16. So the point is, we're going to talk about those actual matches in a second. But before we get into any of the actual preview of those matches, do want to take a quick word from our sponsor. We're also brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Peer-to-peer social betting is a new and better way to bet directly against your friends or other users on sports, politics, pop culture, and other events with verifiable outcomes, plus a ton of social features that give it the feel of a betting social network. Cut offers lower vig and fully customizable odds so you can create your own bets. Cut handles the payment side of things, so you never have to worry about chasing down your money. Social features include group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles,
fan groups, and more. And they also have great rewards. Get cash back every single time you bet against your friends or other users. So download Cut today in the App Store or over at cut.com. That's Kutt, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the place to play fantasy sports because it is the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. They have great pick'em games. For example, you can pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in their upcoming games. You can win up to 100 times your money in a single night. Pick between 2 and 5 players to build a pick'em entry. And you can also make rivals picks, which pits 2 players against each other. So you can pick which player you think might have more points, for example, in an NBA game. But a reminder that you should also join Underdog Fantasy because they have a lot of very fun markets for tennis. They have, for example, breaks of serve. They have aces. They have a lot of fun tennis options to make matches more interesting, and I recommend you joining the platform in order to take advantage of those opportunities. So sign up today with promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them on the App Store, and don't forget to register with the promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. Must be 18 plus and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished briefly discussing the lock and dog picks, and now it is time to get into the actual recap for the previous round. I know that there were some round of 64 matches, that we ended up covering. For example, the Shelton match, which he won 2-0 against Lane DeLucci. For the sake of the recap, though, I think I'm only going to focus on the round of 32. So for the sake of the recap, going to go in order just from the actual bracket, not in the order of matches. You had Alcaraz, who ended up beating Monfils in straight sets. Pretty straightforward, 6-2, 6-4. You saw Musetti pull off an upset there as he beat Shelton 6-4, 7-6. Musetti was in really bad form for the last couple of weeks, and he's been really good. Now, unfortunately for Musetti, his reward is a matchup against Alcaraz, which we'll talk about in a second. But the point is Musetti has regained his form. Good for him, and he picked up a nice upset win there. Then you had the biggest destruction of the entire round of 32, as Dimitrov absolutely destroyed Hanfmann. Now, Hanfmann had a good win against Mannarino. We did like the over in that match. I didn't think Hanfmann would win it, but either way, he showed up, and he got absolutely blitzed by Dimitrov, as Dimitrov won by an absurd scoreline of 6-1, 6-0. So, Hanfmann, thanks for showing up, I guess. You got absolutely destroyed. Dimitrov's been in great form, and we'll see if Dimitrov can continue his good form moving forward. You're assuming that he probably can, but the point is Dimitrov is in line for what should be a good matchup in the round of 16 because he has a matchup against Hurkacz, who did win a marathon against Korda. So good win by Hurkacz there. Zverev ended up beating Eubanks. They had a pretty interesting moment there at the net where Zverev kind of went for a hug and Eubanks said absolutely non-game, kind of a fist bump, and he walked away. So either way, some people gave Eubanks respect for it because of all the, let's say, legal issues that Zverev is dealing with. So that might have been why Eubanks did not want to. Maybe Eubanks just doesn't like him. Medvedev said in years past, Zverev isn't the most well-liked guy on tour. So Eubanks, for whatever reason, ended up not wanting to actually hug Zverev, and that led to a bit of an awkward exchange there at the net. But Zverev got the job done as he won in straight sets. Khachanov won a war against Cerundolo as he ended up winning 7-6 in the final set, as that ended up being a marathon, but Khachanov got over the finish line. You saw Dimenauer beat Struff 7-6, 6-4. Competitive. Dimenauer's a better player, so not exactly a shock there. And Struff served with the fast-paced courts of Miami. Once again, it was not shocking that the match was relatively longer than people might have thought, with the games landing 23. But Dimenauer got the break that he needed, and he won the match 6-4 in the final set. Morozin continued his good run after destroying Rune 6-1, 6-1 in that bloodbath. Ended up responding well, proving that was not a fluke, as he ended up beating Papiron 7-5, 6-3. Ruud ended up beating Fokina. This one we were wrong on for a lean. Did lean to the over 2.5 sets based on the history between these players. And Fokina, I don't want to say no-showed the match, but Ruud definitely looked like the sharper player throughout the match, as he ended up winning 6-3, 6-4. We had a war in the Jari and Seaboth Wild match. We were wrong on this one, kinda. Did lean to the over, but we did lean to Seaboth Wild, and he won the first set 7-6, then lost the next two sets 7-5, 6-3. So nice win by Jari. Couple of marathon matches against Seaboth Wild and against Draper, but he is here as he's now facing off against Rude in the round of 16. Besides that, you had an upset as Kempfer continues his Cinderella run as he was able to beat Humbert in 3 sets. I don't want to say that Humbert peaked in the first couple of weeks of 2024 or the first month or two, but it does seem like Humbert is starting to regress a bit back to the, I'd say, frisky top 20 player, but I think the top 10 dream as of right now is temporarily on hold. Medvedev ended up beating Norrie in straight sets. Good win for him there. Ended up seeing Makic beat Murray in a tremendous match. 5-7, 7-5, 7-6. Crazy match. Makic hit a crazy backhand to set up, I believe it was match point, and then he eventually won via volley drop shot, which was an incredible shot. And to segue for a second, there was some somber news for the Andy Murray camp because in addition to losing the match, it appears his ankle has some serious problems because he suffered an ankle injury in that loss that he had against Makic, and as a result, he will be out for, quote, an extended period of time. Is he going to miss the French Open? Probably, to be honest, is what it kind of sounds like. Will he miss Wimbledon? I don't know. And that's kind of the big one because I think Murray's going to retire before the end of the year. I think he might retire after Wimbledon if he can participate. So keep an eye out for that. But the point is Murray is going to be on the shelf for a while, as I believe he had a fractured bone, I think, in his ankle. I believe that's what happened to him. But either way, he ended up getting injured at 5-5, rolled the ankle, seemed to be in a lot of pain, finished the match out. So props to him, though. But according to him, he suffered a full rupture of the ATFL and a near full thickness rupture of the CFL. So, yeah, his ankle's in trouble, and he might be out for potentially a long time. So we'll see what happens. Murray claims he's going to come back in his exact words, quote, but I'll be back with one hip and no ankle ligaments when the time is right. Not sure if he missed Wimbledon. Would be big if he ended up missing it, because if he does, he might come back next year just so he could play in Wimbledon one more time. But sucks for Murray. I'm not a Murray fan at all. He's one of my least favorite players, but you hate to see guys go out like that, and hopefully he does make a full recovery. Moving on, though, you had Arnaldi, our boy, who I thought should not have been a dog against Shapovalov, and he won again. 1-6-3, 7-6. Been really good to us for this tournament. I know we ended up losing the dog pick with him over 2.5 sets against Fees, but we've kind of been on him for the last couple of rounds, and he's been really good. Had the dog in the next episode against Bublik, which ended up cashing in the first set. Then we also thought he'd win against Chapo, and he did. Now he's against Makic, and guess what? He's a dog once again. We'll talk about that later. Moving on, O'Connell beat Dam in straight sets, 7-6, 7-6, and Sinner was on the ropes. Ended up losing the first set, 5-7, but responded nicely as he ended up winning 7-5, 6-1. So Sinner, a bit of a scare there against Riekspor, but eventually he got over the finish line as he was able to continue and to improve upon his already insane record in 2024. Anyway, that's going to do it for the actual recap of the round of 32. Now it is time to get into the actual preview for the round of 16. Now, a reminder that not all of the matches actually have betting lines, so I'm not sure how much time I'm going to spend on those. Maybe a little bit, nothing insane, but I wanted to at least mention, full disclosure, I was not going to wait until 2, 3 a.m. for all the lines to drop. I decided to just go ahead and record the episode. So if I am missing a line or two, just keep that in mind. I'm not intentionally skipping the Alcaraz match, for example, against Musetti. I just don't have a choice because there is no betting line on it. So anyway, time to get into the actual preview for the matches upcoming. So we're going to start off in chronological order. Going to look at the matchup between Makic and Arnaldi. I said we're going to go back to it. For this one, Makic is a slight favorite as he is around minus 125. Give or take, while Arnaldi's around plus 105. For the game spread, you can find Makic minus half a game at minus 110. Arnaldi plus half a game is minus 110. You can find the over or under set at 23. Slight juice to the under there. But if you wanted to go for some set wagering, Arnaldi to win a set is minus 240. You have Makic to win in straight sets is a plus 190. If you want it the other way, Arnaldi to win in straight sets is plus 240, and the over-under for sets, the over 2.5 is at plus 120, and the under is at minus 150. Now, this is the second time they faced off in their careers, and the first meeting was a kind of a shocking demolition as they faced off in Dubai last year, and Makic beat Arnaldi 6-0, 6-1. Complete destruction. A reminder, though, Makic did go to a final set tiebreak against Djokovic in that event, so Makic was in great form, where Arnaldi might not have been. I like Arnaldi here. Once again, he's been our solid, I'd say, sleeper in the event, and he's been really good. Now, Makic had a good form. I am a bit concerned, though, that he got broken while serving for the match against Murray, who had a destroyed ankle. Probably not a good look when you are serving for the match against a guy whose ankle's in pieces, and you still can't close it out, and he ended up getting the job done eventually in the breaker, but it was 5-5, and the breaker was very close. I know adrenaline can be a hell of a drug, and I know that Murray can definitely, or athletes can, I'd say, overcome some serious physical ailments or injuries in the short term, and the long term, they cannot. I get that happened, but still, Murray had an issue with his ankle, and Makic really didn't capitalize on it, and it was a marathon match anyway. I do think I'm looking at Arnaldi at plus 105. He's just been so good, and I think that he keeps being disrespected. Now, it might be a close match. I might not mind Arnaldi in 3. I think that does have marathon written all over it, but I do think Arnaldi is a bit mispriced once again. And until he honestly loses as a dog, I'm going to keep taking him. He's been a dog in every round, and he's won every round. So I'm not going to go against it. Kind of free rolling at this point. Give me Arnaldi on the money line at around plus 105. Moving on to the next match, you have Koepfer taking on Medvedev. Medvedev is a massive favorite here. Medvedev is around, the price is going to be massive. It's around minus 800 on the money line. Koepfer is around plus 580. As for the game spread, Medvedev is a minus 5 and minus 115. Koepfer is plus 5 and minus 105. Over for the games is set at 19.5 at minus 120. The under is set at even money. If you want to go for actual wagering for sets, you can get Medvedev to win in straight sets at minus 200. And you can get the match to go 2-3 sets at plus 220. Now, they faced off 2 times, coincidentally, both in the U.S. Open. Medvedev did win both times. They're a bit dated, faced off in 2019 and in 2021. Medvedev did win the first meeting in 4 sets, actually. Lost the first set, then won the next 3. Faced off in 2021, and Medvedev did win that one convincingly in straight sets. Simply put, Medvedev's the much better player. Not really much more to add. Koepfer's had a good run, beating Giron, beating Baez, and beating Humbert. So kind of a Cinderella run for him. But Medvedev's look sharp, beat Fucsovics in straight sets, beat Norrie in straight sets. Medvedev, we know, is one of the best hardcore players in the world, and it kind of reminds me of the breakdown that I had for the Koepfer-Tommy Paul match a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even a month or 2 ago, where my argument against Koepfer in that match was, I don't know what he does better at than Paul. And I feel like if you have no unique intangibles or attributes, you're going to have a hard time upsetting guys. And I know he upset Humbert in the previous round, but I really don't know what Koepfer has that can actually hurt Medvedev, because Medvedev, we know, is a very solid baseliner, one of the most rock-solid baseliners on the entire tour. What does Koepfer actually have? Is his serve great? Not really. Does he have volley skills? Not really. And I think that you're going to see a baseline affair, kind of like what we saw in that Norrie-Medvedev match, where one guy is just clearly better at that style of play than the other. So I think Medvedev's going to win in straight sets, and I think that minus 200 is a pretty decent parlay piece. Maybe we'll get to that in a bit. Spoiler, still, I think Medvedev wins in straight sets. Moving on to the next match, you have a very fun one taking place between Jarry and Ruud. Might be the most fun match of the day. We'll see what happens here, but it should be competitive. Ruud is a decent favorite, though, as Ruud is around minus 205 on the money line, where Jarry is around plus 175. If you want the actual game spread, Ruud minus 2.5 is minus 115. Jarry plus 2.5 is minus 105. Over-run for games is 23.5 with a little bit of juice there to the under. Ruud in straight sets is plus 120. Jarry to win a set is minus 150. And you can find the over 2.5 sets at plus 150. I like the over in this match. I think Jarry might be live. Now, a couple reasons why I feel this way. First of all, Ruud has been good in this event, but he has not been dominant per se recently. Did go to 3 sets against Monfils, did go to 3 sets against Paul back in Indian Wells, went to 3 sets against Van Asch in the first round of Miami. Then he beat Fekina in straight sets, but still, point is Ruud has gone to 3 sets in 3 of his last 4 matches, and Jarry's gone to 3 sets in each of his last 3 matches, including both matches here, beating Draper and beating Seaworth Wild in 3. But you're looking at the head-to-head meetings, they've been close. They faced off in the French Open last year. Ruud did win 7-6, 7-5, 7-5. So competitive match on Ruud's most comfortable surface, but the point is the match was competitive anyway. And they faced off in Geneva last year as well. That did go 3, where Jari actually won. And they faced off in South Korea in 2022, the only hardcourt meeting in the head-to-head, and Ruud did win in 3. So based on the history in the head-to-head and based on the current form that both guys are in with regard to these 3-set, I'd say, affairs they've been in, I got to like the over in this one. I see a close match. I do think that 3 sets at plus 150 is a very good price, but I think you might see a breaker. You might see a couple of really, really long sets. Give me the over for games and give me the over in sets as well at what I think is a pretty good price. Moving on to the next match, we're going to look at a matchup between O'Connell and Sinner. For this one, Sinner is a massive favorite. I really did not spend much time on the Sinner match against Griekspoor. I just thought he would bury him, and I was definitely wrong because Griekspoor was definitely capable of winning that match. Did lose the second set, though, and then he mentally imploded as Sinner ran away with the third set. O'Connell's been in good form, but he has had a relatively easy path up to this point. To go through the actual matches O'Connell's had, yes, he beat Tiafoe. My thoughts on Tiafoe are well documented. I don't think he's very good. I think that he is a mental... I'd say that I don't want to say he's a mental patient, but I think that mentally he is extremely weak, and I think that he's a loser. That's kind of what I think about Tiafoe, so that's how I view him and why he's had a really bad 2024. When things go poorly, he's not going to respond well, and he tends to self-destruct in big moments. But anyway, beat Capriva, beat Tiafoe, and beat Dam. Fortunate to face off against Dam because we know Tommy Paul got injured in that match against Dam, and O'Connell would have probably faced off against Paul, and in my opinion would have lost in that matchup. But still, not O'Connell's problem. The point is he's not dropped a set yet, but he's now going up against Sinner, who might be the best player in the world. Sinner looks fine after the injury concerns entering the event, but still, I just think O'Connell's going to get killed here. I'm not going to make a case for him. I think Sinner does win in straight sets. Moving on, though, to the next match, I have a little bit of lines on the de Minaur match and the Zverev match, and that's really all I have. So I do not have anything on the Dimitrov match, and I have nothing on the Alcaraz match. So we're going to skip those two. Moving on, though, to the de Minaur match, you have de Minaur as a pretty decent favorite of about minus 350. Morozin is around plus 280. De Minaur minus 4 games is even money. Morozin plus 4 is minus 120. Over-under for games is set at 22. Now, I've been leaning more to favorites in this round, but I do think Morozin actually has the game that can keep de Minaur on the ropes, especially since they faced off on hard court last year in Shanghai, and Morozin won straight sets. Did win 6-3, 7-5. He's been phenomenal, Morozin. Ended up beating Rune 6-1, 6-1, beat Kovacevic 6-3, 6-2, going out of order, but still ended up beating Papyrin 7-5, 6-3. Also did well in qualifying in Indian Wells before getting matched up against Alcaraz, and not his fault there. But the point is, Morozin has been in great form. De Minaur's been in good form too. Did struggle a bit with Struff with the pace of the courts, but I think it's mostly just giving Morozin some respect. And I do think based on his overall form, I think 4 games is massive. The fact that Morozin beat him in the head-to-head last year, and the fact that he's been in great form, I'm not saying he's officially going to win, but I am saying that plus 280 does look quite enticing. And I do think that plus 4 games is a good overall spread price. I'm going to link to Morozin in this one. I think that he's going to keep it close. Is he going to win? I didn't say that, but I do think this match should be competitive, and I am going to try to lean to the dog in that one as a result. And for the last one, you have Zverev against Khachanov, as Zverev is around minus 215 on the money line, and Khachanov is plus 185 on the money line as well. I don't have any actual game spread lines for this. Probably going to be somewhere around 2.5 or 3. Head-to-head's been close, though, as it is 3-2 all-time in the head-to-head, with Zverev winning the first 2. Then Khachanov came back and won the next 2, and then you ended up seeing Zverev beat Khachanov in the Olympics in 2021. So no recent meetings. Zverev's look good, though, in this event. Did beat Felix in straight sets and Eubanks in straight sets. Khachanov been fine, beat De Gier in straight sets, and had a war against Cerundolo. That one, just to go through the actual time on court for this match. That was a long one, 2 hours and 48 minutes, and that might leave Khachanov potentially tired for this one. I'm going to link to Zverev. I just think that he's in better form. I think that it could be close, but Zverev, I just think, is clicking again, and it seems like Khachanov, despite playing well, has been involved in a couple of close matches against weaker competition, and I do think that Zverev should continue with solid form in Miami here. So I am going to lean to Zverev to get the job done. Maybe in straight sets, I'll lean to the spread, but I do think based on the current form, I think Zverev's form is better right now, so I am going to lean to Zverev in that one. As I said before, we're going to skip the Alcaraz match, and we are going to skip the Dimitrov match just because I don't have lines on it, so I'm not going to bother. But anyway, time to get into the lock and dog picks for the show. But before we get into any of that, do want to take another quick word from our sponsor.
We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger betting smarter this NBA season with Hall of Fame Bets. Sports Analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NBA and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets' revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the app or visit HOPETS.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the round of 16 matches in Miami. Now it is time for the actual lock and dog picks. Starting off with the lock, we did win a parlay with the dog last episode on two massive favorites to win in straight sets. We're going to run it back, but this time for the lock, going to go with Medvedev and Sinner to win in straight sets each. And when you parlay them together, you do get minus 117. Starting off with the Medvedev match, he has not dropped a set yet. We know how good he is on hard court, and Medvedev has won each of the last 6 sets against Koepfer. Mostly just a lack of intangibles for Koepfer. I just think that you're going to see a really long, just a series of baseline rallies, and it's really tough to actually break down Medvedev. I think Medvedev wins comfortably, maybe 6-3, 6-2, something like that, but I just really don't see what Koepfer can do in this spot, and I actually think Norrie is great prep for Medvedev in this matchup because Norrie's a lefty, and so is Koepfer. So I think that the Norrie match will help him prepare for the lefty opponent here, and Medvedev I just think is too rock solid. So I give me Medvedev to win in straight sets. As for Sinner, he's arguably the best player in the world right now. O'Connell has looked good. Weak competition, though, beating Capriva. Really bad form Tiafoe and Dam, who kind of had his own Cinderella miracle run as Paul got injured against him while Dam was down a set. Now he's against Sinner. Good luck. I think you're going to need it. I think Sinner's going to kill him. So give me Medvedev and Sinner to each win in straight sets at minus 117 as the lock. For the dog, I am going to go back to that Jarry and Ruud match, and I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. I do think the over 2.5 set price is extremely generous, and I am going to take it for value. Give me the plus 150. Each of the first 3 head-to-head meetings were competitive. Last one was on clay, and that was a straight sets win for Ruud, but Ruud did win 7 games in each set. So the match was close in general, despite ending in straight sets. First 2 meetings, though, did go to deciding sets, including the only hard court match that happened in 2022. So Jarry's game, I do think, can give Ruud problems, mostly because of the fact that Ruud stands very far back on the court. Jarry does have a good serve, and Jarry's an underrated volleyer. It would not shock me if he ended up using some volleying tactics in this matchup with Ruud standing, I don't even know, 10 feet behind the baseline. So I think Jarry can hold. I think Ruud's going to hold as well. So maybe you'll get a breaker or two. You might see some ebbs and flows here, but based on the head-to-head meetings, I do think you're looking at what should be a competitive match. And each player's been involved in a couple of marathons recently, as Jarry's last 3 matches have each gone to a deciding set. And Ruud has gone to a bunch of long matches too, as Ruud has gone to a deciding set in 3 of his last 4 matches. So based on the recent form and the tendency of both guys to go to deciding sets, I do think plus 150 is a very good price, and as a result, I am going to take it. So once again, my picks for the show, the round of 16 picks, the lock's going to be on a 2-pick parlay, giving Medvedev to win in straight sets parlayed with Sinner to win in straight sets at minus 117. For my dog, give me Jarry and Ruud over 2.5 sets at plus 150. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. A reminder, find me again on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the MLB show. Reminder, MLB starting this week, so keep an eye out for that. And besides that, reminder for the next episode, we'll be back for the quarterfinal picks in Miami. But until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.